Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. At the top of his Twitter feed is Zach Calzada. We discussed that from A&M Incarnate Word and now headed to Auburn, among others. Sam, how you doing, young man? Appreciate your time. What did I say?
Headed to Kentucky.
Kentucky.
He was at Auburn.
I said Auburn. He was at Auburn. Sam, okay, hottest on your radar, the transfer portal, the college football playoff coming up, or the junior college story that popped last night, which I know may be a little more minimal but still kind of sent some waves through college football?
Yeah, I think the junior college story is the one that's the hottest topic right now, certainly in the last 24 hours, because people are wondering if it's going to end up impacting all the other players. Because right now, the court ruling specifically applies only to Pavia. That the way the opinion was written, it was narrow in that scope. But naturally, others are going to try to challenge it, I think. And that's where it gets really potentially sticky and messy is are we going to apply this to all former junior college athletes? If we do, is it going to be blanket for everybody, or are we talking just in the NIL era? Because the case that Diego brought was, hey, I'm prevented from making NIL money because those years counted against my eligibility. So that's going to be a lot to work through. I think it's very, very dangerous to go down this road because of the impact it will have on high school recruiting. And Steve Sarkisian said it earlier today. I was listening to him when we were talking about the playoff game, but the Texas playing against Clemson. So someone asked him about it, and he played junior college football himself and said that he disagreed with it. He said, you're going to have guys out here 28, 29 years old, which if you were to put some JUCO year, take some JUCO year back from guys and give them NCAA eligibility, we would be flirting with that. And I do think you have to ask, when is enough and as far as how long guys can play college football.
Sam, the NCAA just keeps losing any kind of effectiveness that they have each passing moment. How quickly do they really need to act here to just figure something? Like, they've got the House settlement that they've got to start working out there in July. With eligibility, you would think this would be important, where they need to say, here's what JUCO is, here's how many years you have. If it's 5 years to play 5, or if JUCO doesn't count and you have 4, JUCO counts as 1 year and you have 4 years at a 4-year college, they need to put that down and incorporate that into the contracts and maybe actually collectively bargain, and they won't lose these things.
Yeah, I agree. I think something needs to be done fairly quickly, probably within the next few weeks or the next month if possible, because I saw Joey McGuire when he was talking with the local reporters in Lubbock saying that, hey, why not? Should we look at getting one of their players who had played JUCO? Can we get a year back and get him back next year? Because you're going to have coaches who want to know that, who want to know if this is the case and it's going to end up applying to everybody, can we bring those guys back? And that's critical in roster decisions, because you've got guys who are going to be enrolling in January. And then if the settlement is approved in April and goes into effect in July, then those hard 105 roster limits are going to exist. And so coaches are going to have to know what they're working with from a roster standpoint. Are you going to be able to bring some of these guys back or not? So I think it's really important. To your point on the 5 years, I do think, and just talking to people in the industry, I get the sense within the next year we're going to get closer to a get rid of red shirts and go 5 years to play 5, period. That I think is cool, because there's been a lot of upheaval about guys playing 4 games and then sitting out the rest of the year. I think the way to do that is you just eliminate the red shirts and give everybody a blanket 5 years to play. But then the question is again, do JUCO years factor into that or not? And what other parameters do you make for medical exceptions when guys get injured and things like that?
Sam, you mentioned Joey McGuire, right now the number 1 recruiting class in the transfer portal throughout the entire country, with 14 players at last looked, and I've looked in the last 20 seconds. There might have been a 15th at the rate they're going right now, but above Ole Miss and Michigan and everybody else in the country, they're number 1. Your thoughts on the multiple big splashes? They get Quentin Joyner today to help replace Taj Brooks, and just what do you see them cooking up out there in West Texas?
Yeah, it's a fascinating alteration in strategy from Joey McGuire, who, of course, was hired as a former Texas high school coach and built the program or said that he was going to build the program on high school recruiting. And he largely has done that in the first few years. But this is a shift in strategy, and they're going all heavy on the portal this year. And I think the reason is clear is I think they believe that they can win the Big 12 and get themselves a playoff spot next year. That's the only reason in my mind that you go this heavy on the portal. The other reason would be is if you just felt your roster wasn't good enough. If you're in a Deion Sanders situation at Colorado and you're taking over a bad team, but you're getting into year 4 of Joey McGuire. Now they've just won 8 games, maybe could win a 9th if they win this bowl game. Their clearly trajectory is good. So by going this heavy on the portal, you're saying we're putting all our eggs into the 2025 basket. We want to get to the playoff. We want to win the conference. And I think they're giving themselves a hell of a chance to do it because of the way they've performed in the portal and how aggressive they've been.
How much of a Christmas gift is John Mateer to Oklahoma?
Well, I mean, he had the Mariah Carey "All I Want for Christmas" in the background of his commitment video. That's got to be a first, right?
I think so.
The recruiting space. Very well done video by whoever did that, by the way. That was much needed for Oklahoma. They've been getting hammered in the portal. They've lost more than 20 of their guys. They only, I think, after yesterday, I think they had brought in 5 or 6 total on the other side, and they brought in a couple of receivers. They brought in offensive lineman, now Mateer. But getting the quarterback solved was so big for them because that was one of the ails that they had this year. Of course, we know receivers were really banged up. Offensive line played really poorly. They fired a coordinator midseason. Well, they got the coordinator done with Ben Arbuckle, and now you get his quarterback who's going to fit in the system. And to me, this is when you're trying to make an impact in the portal, especially with an offense, this is how you do it. You get a coordinator and the player, the quarterback. And if you can get some other skilled guys, which I don't know that they're going to necessarily do that with Wazoo, but it reminds me of what Western Kentucky did a few years back when they took all those guys from HBU and Zach Kitley got the job at Western Kentucky. They took the quarterback, Bailey Zappi, and a bunch of the receivers. And that system familiarity, which is hard to find in the portal era because guys are changing schools left and right. Now you have it. You have continuity with the quarterback and the coordinator, and I think that's going to be so important for Oklahoma, who needs a big year because this is a huge year for Brent Venables going into year 4 because they've got 2 6-win seasons, and that just ain't cutting it in Norman.
Do you think that this now maybe turns the tide for some of the other recruits? Look, they've already done some work on the offensive line. They need the skill players. Do you think this definitely turns the tide because now players will go, well, if I'm going to transfer, I'm going for the quarterback. Like that's what's going to help me out.
Yeah, that helps for sure. If you've got your quarterback and you've got your coordinator and you have a solid plan, that can absolutely help you moving forward in the portal. And then, of course, obviously, just from a financial standpoint, you've got to be there, which it seems like Oklahoma is because Mateer was getting a 7-figure offer from the Coup Collective at Wazoo and turned it down to go in the portal. So clearly Oklahoma's pony up for Mateer. So as long as they've got that in order, I think there's a chance. And if you're Oklahoma, I think you have to be aggressive because they've just got to be better than they were this year in the SEC.
Sam Conn with us, theathletic.com on 365 Sports. First-round games. Yes, they're playing tomorrow night. They're starting
football,
tomorrow night. Like, there's so much else going on, like a car wreck here and a stabbing over here. There's so much distractions, and yet we're having the first ever more than 4 teams, the 12-team playoff that kicks off tomorrow night. What game is the one that intrigues you the most, the one you can't wait to possibly watch?
Indiana, Notre Dame. Because it's the in-state battle. You've got the traditional blue blood, the helmet program with all its history, and they're going to be at home against the upstart Indiana program that is not a football school that burst onto the radar with a first-year coach and had a lot of skeptics because of its schedule. And it's an in-state battle. So I'll be curious to see how much Indiana Crimson is in the crowd in South Bend this weekend. So that's the one that's most compelling to me just because of the proximity of the schools. And Kirk Cignetti, it's a chance for him to show, hey, we weren't just a school that just beat up on a lowly schedule. We're an actual real deal contender here. And if you knock Notre Dame off, who some people are picking to get to the title game, myself included when I fell to my bracket, that would be a huge statement for Indiana football. But all 4 games, I think, are going to be tremendous, and I'm so excited that they're all 4 on campuses.
There's a guy that's at the gym that is an Indiana fan, and he's been wearing the jersey, not the jerseys, but the sweatshirts. I don't know if we all realize what this means to schools like Indiana. Notre Dame's used to this, or others, but he just can't wait. He said, listen, I understand it might not end the way I want. It might be disappointing, but I don't think I haven't had this feeling in my heart in football in a long, long time. Probably forever as an Indiana fan.
No doubt. For Indiana, again, largely known as a basketball school, has been a doormat in the Big Ten for a long, long time. It's huge. For Arizona State, who's endured a lot of crap in the last few years, of course, they're playing in the quarterfinal, it's huge for them. For SMU, who was bad for multiple decades after the death penalty and now has risen back and become a force again, it's huge for them. For Boise State, who we remember in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma back 17 years ago, that they're now here, and this is a chance for them to play with the big boys and say, hey, you can't just tell us we can't play for a championship anymore. Now they're here and they get to be a part of it. I'm so excited for those programs and to watch how they fare, because then we can get rid of all this eye test and what schedule they played. They're here, buddy. It's a chance for them to prove it on the field. SMU is going to have to go to State College in 30-degree weather to play. Buddy, if they win that game and beat Penn State in Happy Valley, you can't tell SMU anything.
Yep.
Yeah, and really, you couldn't tell a lot of the smaller schools or the non-SEC Big Ten teams could be like, man, there's an example right there of why you just give a team a shot and they can either take advantage of it or they don't. But I love that you said the word bracket. You filled out your bracket. I was talking about this yesterday of just the idea of filling out brackets now that we have multiple games to plan for. So you're the techspert. How do you have SMU and Texas faring? And I guess because we won't talk to you for a while with the Christmas break, who do you have standing tall at the end of your bracket?
Yeah, I had SMU. Unfortunately, don't hate me, ponies. I had them losing in the first round game. I think I got influenced by the weather and people somehow saying that Penn State is a really good team. I'm not sure they're elite, but maybe the way they kept up somewhat with Oregon influenced me a little bit on that one. So I have Penn State winning in the first round there. Texas I have going all the way. Just because I look at their roster from top to bottom and their defense to me is going to carry them. And it's just a matter of them not playing terribly on offense. If they can have some explosive plays, if they can have some semblance of a running game, and then you look at the path that they have, it's not incredibly daunting. They get Clemson at home, who's a flawed team. They get Arizona State, who's really, really hot, and that one could get tricky. But I think from a line of scrimmage trenches standpoint, Texas has the edge there. And then when they play Oregon, if they make it that far, they get them at Jerry World. They get them in the heart of Texas. That's a massive disadvantage for Oregon to have to travel into the state of Texas to play Texas. And so that path, I think, sets them up really well, which is why I have them going all the way. But it won't stun me in the least if, for instance, they got clipped by Oregon or something happened, because we've seen them play with their food enough offensively that it could get a little sticky for them somewhere along the line.
What is your hottest take among the games? That you think is you're out on the limb?
Boise State. I have Boise State winning its quarterfinal game.
Oh, okay.
Beating the Penn State SMU winner. Remember, this is a team that went toe-to-toe with the number one team in America. Mm-hmm. And they have the best running back in America. They have a really good team. And this is a program that has won. This is a program that's used to being in high-stakes game. They've been in a lot of pressure games this season, even though the competition may not be of the same level. But I think whoever wins that game in Happy Valley, I think Boise State has a really good chance to win that, and that's why I have them winning it and going on to the semifinals.
We have Barry Odom on in the 5 o'clock hour, recorded it earlier today, and I asked him about Aston Gentry. He goes, Smokey, you don't have to remind me. I had to play him twice this year and three times last year. I got the 3 dose of Aston Gentry, and it was obviously incredibly complimentary of him, too. Anyone else have anything for Sam?
Sam, I think we kind of touched on the transfers a little bit, but any big picture thoughts on Calzada to Kentucky or Jackson Arnold to Auburn, some of the couple recent ones we've had, and some Texas boys?
Yeah, I'm very happy for Zach Calzada. That guy's been through a lot in his career. Of course, he was the one who led the upset over Alabama at A&M back in 2021, but the fans turned on him pretty quickly as things went south. He transferred to Auburn, didn't really get on the field much there, and then really found his groove at Incarnate Word. They went undefeated in the Southland Conference. He was the player of the year there, led him to the second round of the playoffs. And now he gets a chance to go back into the SEC. I'm really happy for him. From all accounts, he seems like a good guy. His family seems like a good people. And you just want to see that young man have a chance to thrive again at the level that he was recruited at and the level that multiple programs felt he could play. Jackson Arnold for Auburn, really big get for them. They needed to shore up that quarterback room, and I know they brought in the freshman this year, so that'll be interesting to see. But they have also done really well in the portal. They have gotten a really good class so far. So Hugh Freeze looks like he's stocking up to try to make a run. And then as the Texas schools, I would say A&M has done really well. Of course, they got Micah Hudson. They're still trying to get some more receivers, but they've done a pretty good job. And I've seen Houston do a sneaky good job so far. Not a lot of headliners, but a lot of really quality players. They got the tight end transfer from Tulsa, Luke McGarry, who numbers don't really jump off the page, but when you talk to coaches and scouts in here, they really like his upside. They've done a really good job in the portal shoring things up and getting Connor Wigman, of course, the quarterback from A&M, who I think is going to answer a big question for them there on that front. So I think Houston's done a sneaky good job so far, quietly, because they don't have the money to spend to get some of these big names, but I think they've done a really good job so far.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Wegman and Hudson. That feels like it was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You're saying them as like 2 days ago, but it feels like it was 2 weeks ago.
It seems like every year when we say it cannot continue to be more convoluted or more bizarre or whatever, frenetic, it gets more frenetic. It is. I mean, this JUCO thing came out of like left field. And I don't know if you saw Steve Sarkisian, who played junior college before he went to BYU. He goes, I totally disagree with this determination. We chose to go junior college football. That's where we wanted to start and play our career. So I don't understand it at all. We're going to have guys 28, 29 years old playing college football. What's the point? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I totally disagree with it.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think it's a slippery slope to go down just because it's going to be hard to ask an 18 and 19-year-old high school recruit to compete for a spot against a 24, 25, 26-year-old guy. And we've had that issue a little bit with the COVID year because of the COVID exception, which everybody was granted, which is totally fair because of how messed up that season was. But those guys being held over has really impacted how many high school guys got opportunities, and it falls down the food chain. So there may be guys who went Power 5 before, went Group of 5, maybe guys who went Group of 5, went FCS, and so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And the other question I have is if this does become a blanket thing that applies to all these guys, do the junior colleges have the ability to support this many, so many more players coming into their program? Because you're going to have big time programs who are going to, as you mentioned at the top, Smoke, guys used to try to place guys, they're non-qualifiers at friendly JUCOs.
Yep.
Now you would try to do this not for non-qualifiers, but just for guys that are developmental guys that you would have taken in the past that you're not going to take now because, you've got an older guy that's already on the roster.
Thank you, buddy. What are your plans? Are you covering anybody this weekend? And then, of course, we'll be out all of next week. We'll get you once there's a lot of dust settles the week of New Year's, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be in Austin this weekend. I'll be following Texas all the way through, however long they last. So hope you guys have a great holiday.
You too.
And everything goes well for you guys.
Thank you. Sam Kahn, theathletic.com with us.